So week 1 of the NFL season just concluded, and we have one team already in literal injury hell with 2 other coaches on the hot seat if their teams can't turn things around. Sure, it's still early, but some of the concerns date back to last season as well, so these teams have to figure things out ASAP. So I've got to talk about that, a wild comeback in J.J. McCarthy's NFL debut on Monday Night Football, a pretty surprising trade, Tyreek Hill back in the news for all the wrong reasons, and more right after. All right, first up, the Bears and Vikings squared off last night on Monday Night Football, and actually, it got pretty good near the end. It was a little rough to begin with, but did feature quite an exciting fourth quarter comeback. Chicago took a 17-6 lead early in the third quarter after JJ threw a pretty bad pick six here. Then their next 2 drives were 3 and outs, and things were not looking so great for JJ in his NFL debut, but give him credit because he bounced back and led 3 straight touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. The Vikings defense clamped down too, and Minnesota scored 21 unanswered to take a 27-17 lead. Chicago did manage to score a late touchdown, but the Vikings dominated that final period and got the win 27-24. And get this, JJ McCarthy became the first player in NFL history to account for 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of an NFL debut. And also, in the past 45 years, there's only been 2 quarterbacks to overcome a double-digit deficit in the fourth quarter of their debut and win, with those being Steve Young and J.J. McCarthy. Pretty impressive, and now the Vikes will get ready for another primetime game this week when they take on the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. But right before Monday Night Football kicked off, there was a pretty surprising trade that took place between the Eagles and the Jags. Jacksonville sent running back Tank Bigsby over to Philly in exchange for a 5th and a 6th round pick. For the Eagles, their backup Will Shipley is dealing with a rib injury, and A.J. Dillon missed all of last season with a neck injury. So this move bolsters their running back room a bit behind Saquon Barkley, and Philly might be using him at kick return duties as well. For the Jags, their running back room became crowded after they drafted Bayshul Tootin, but I really thought Travis Etienne would be the odd man out, or could be if it came to it, since his contract is up after the season and he was coming off the worst year of his career in 2024. But in week 1, this man operated as the lead back with 16 carries for 143 yards, and that may have given them the confidence they needed to ship out Bigsby. Tank averaged 4.6 yards per carry last year and scored 7 touchdowns, and at only 24 years old, he could realistically be the Eagles' number 2 back for years to come, under cost control as well, because he still has 2 years left on his rookie deal. And speaking of Eagles news, many Eagles fans, and really fans around the NFL, were waiting to see what the NFL would decide to do in regards to consequences for Jalen Carter, who spit on the chest of Dak Prescott just before the game was really getting started. They played one play, it was a kickoff, and then he got ejected for that happening. Well, the NFL is not going to be suspending him. Sorta. They kind of did. Here's what's going on. They're fining Jalen Carter $57,222 for spitting on Dak Prescott. And this is kind of funny because the announcement on the transaction wire was Philadelphia's Jalen Carter, defensive tackle Georgia, has been suspended by the commissioner for 1 game. However, his suspension is considered served, and he will be eligible to play in week 2. I feel like the league was in a bit of a hard spot here because they promised to crack down on certain penalties just before the season started, and a spit, like straight up spitting on somebody, is about the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do. So they had to try and figure out a compromise, I guess, because moving forward, players can be suspended for this now, and since he didn't play a single snap, this is essentially his suspension. Some love that, some hate it. I'm kind of indifferent. I figured he would be playing, considering nobody has ever been suspended for spitting on somebody in the past. And so here we are. Jalen Carter will be suiting up for the Eagles week 2, Sunday, mid-slate game against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. And then the Steelers made an interesting signing today after learning that their starting safety Deshon Elliot will miss a couple of weeks with an MCL sprain. Jordan Schultz said that the goal is for him to be back in time for the Steelers' week 4 matchup against the Vikings in Ireland. In the meantime, they went out and signed Jabrill Peppers, a safety who was a bit of a surprise cut by the Patriots at the end of the preseason. Peppers did miss 11 games with a knee injury, amongst other ailments, but he's healthy now, and the soon-to-be 30-year-old safety could see some significant playing time right away in this Steelers defense. Their rookie defensive tackle Derek Harmon missed week 1 with a knee injury, and while he has already been ruled out for week 2, the word is that he's likely back for week 3. Joey Porter Jr. and Nick Herbig, a couple of starters along that defense, both have hamstring injuries, but Mike Tomlin said said he was optimistic about both of those guys playing this week. They definitely need to get healthy because, yes, while they did beat the Jets on Sunday, I don't think anybody expected them to give up 32 points and nearly 400 yards to them. Aaron Rodgers looked fantastic in his debut, though, so if they can stay healthy and tighten up that defense, Pittsburgh could be a team to watch for in the AFC. Next up, stop me if you've heard this one before, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but the 49ers could be in trouble because of some mounting injuries. George Kittle left Sunday's game with a hamstring, never to return, and Kyle Shanahan told the media yesterday that he expects him to miss a couple weeks. Well, to be exact, it's going to be at least 4 games because today the team placed him on injured reserve. Definitely less than ideal here because Kittle is very valuable to this offense, but he's about to be 32 years old and soft tissue injuries can linger. So who knows how long he will actually end up missing, but we do know it's going to be at least 4. And there's no doubt this is going to affect their offense. Since 2020, the 49ers are tied for first in EPA per offensive play when Kittle is on the field, but when he's not, they drop all the way to 16th. The value he brings to that offense in terms of both blocking and receiving really can't be overstated, but unfortunately, that's only the beginning for them in terms of concerning injuries. I say that because Brock Purdy is reportedly in danger of missing week 2 and possibly beyond as he's dealing with 2 injuries, a left shoulder injury and his toe. Shanahan did say, though, that the toe is actually the worst of the 2, and they'll see how this week of practice goes before making a decision. But yeah, if Brock Purdy can't go, then it's going to be Mac Jones in his place. Mac would also be without Kittle, but there's at least some good news because wide receiver Juwan Jennings also left Sunday's game with a shoulder injury. Yet, Ian Rappaport said today that it is not believed to be serious. Jeff Mueller, a physical therapist, said that if his pain levels are down and his function is near full by the end of the week, he could be back in time for their game against the Saints this Sunday. And before I talk about their concerning special teams unit, I did want to mention that yesterday they extended right tackle Colton McKivitz to a well-deserved 3-year, $45 million deal worth $27 million in guarantees. McKivitz was a 5th rounder back in 2020 and became a full-time starter in 2023, so now he's locked up through the 2028 season. That's good news because Trent Williams isn't getting any younger, so you do have some longer-ish term security along the tackle spots there, but let's get into the somewhat surprising player, only minorly surprising player that they let go today, which I'll get to in a second. It's just safe to say that 49ers fans are not thrilled with the status of their special teams unit. Sky Moore, who they just traded for from the Chiefs and wasn't a return specialist by any stretch of the imagination, muffed a punt last week for them, though he did manage to recover it. And then today they waived their kicker, Jake Moody. And it's a little surprising only because he was drafted in the 3rd round back in 2023, the highest a kicker had been drafted since 2016. So that's the only reason why it was a little surprising. Everybody else was so sick of this guy. If you ask a 49ers fan about Jake Moody, they would drop multiple F-bombs just because you brought up his name. So obviously to have that much investment in a kicker, a 3rd rounder, that means he would have to be very bad in order to get let go. Well, he hasn't been great to say the least. Moody's rookie season, he ranked 21st in field goal percentage, but last year dropped all the way to 35th and was just 10 of 20 from outside of 40 yards. The final straw came on Sunday, though, because this man missed a 27-yard field goal and then had a 36-yarder blocked later in the game. I'm not sure the blocked field goal was really his fault, and he didn't actually cost them the game because they won, but he easily could have. And with Moody already on a short leash, it was beyond time to move on. And they didn't waste any time adding to their roster when later this afternoon, they signed veteran free agent kicker Eddie Pinheiro to their active roster on a 1-year deal. He does have the 3rd most accurate kicking percentage on field goals in the NFL, only behind Justin Tucker and Harrison Butker. And some say, well, he's washed. He's not who he once was. Well, Jake Moody's field goal percentage last year was 70.6%, and last year Pinheiro's was 84.6%. So either way, you're getting an upgrade there. And I know it's still early on in the season, but there have been some major red flags with this 49ers team. All the injuries to their receiving room, and that's not even to mention Ayuk not yet back. Then Kittle is now on IR, Brock Purdy being questionable for week 2. And while he did play Sunday, are we really expecting Christian McCaffrey to make it through an entire season since he was already questionable to play week 1 with a calf issue? This is all coming off the heels of last year in which they only won 6 games after several key players missed significant time with injuries. If 2025 is a repeat of 2024 and the Niners miss the playoffs, you have to wonder how long it takes before Kyle Shanahan and even GM John Lynch are in the hot seat especially when you consider the huge reach and fail that they had for Trey Lance years back. I don't think they would get fired if they missed the postseason again or anything like that, but since 2017, they've yet to win a Super Bowl with some of the best rosters in the league during their tenure, despite making it to 4 conference championships and also 2 big games. Sometimes patience runs out, and personally, I would like to see Shanahan just make it long enough until Andy Reid retires so he can become the Chiefs' new head coach. Jokes aside, this is the NFL after all, and anything can happen, just like how the Dolphins extended Mike McDaniel last offseason to keep him around through 2028, but now he's reportedly on the hot seat. According to Tony Pauline of Sportskeeda, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross is expected to fire both McDaniel and GM Chris Greer if the team isn't competitive over the next 6 to 7 games. Well, they've got 3 divisional games in a row against the Patriots, Bills, and Jets, so good freaking luck. Then it's the Panthers, Chargers, Browns, Falcons. Probably not beating the Chargers, but there are some winnable games in there for sure. However, I don't have confidence in them to beat anybody right now after getting blown out 33-8 by Indiana Jones and the Colts. The Dolphins are a mess right now and need to quickly correct course. It also didn't help that they have a 3-13 record against winning teams under Mike McDaniel. Tua's long-term health is an underlying question mark as well. Plus, he looked pretty bad against Indy. On top of that, I've already mentioned that Miami has a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, which was evident in their loss against the Colts. Now, they did go out and sign guard Cole Strange off of Cleveland's practice squad today. He was a former first-round pick by the Patriots in 2022, but his last 2 seasons were marred by injuries, and New England released him on roster cutdown day. Not sure if he'll start right away, but they just lost their starting right guard James Daniels to a pec injury, and he's expected to miss some time. So if the injuries and poor play weren't enough of an issue, Tyreek Hill is back in the news again for not great reasons. Yesterday, court filings were made public by TMZ in which Tyreek's estranged wife accused him of multiple bouts of domestic violence. Tyreek has denied the allegations, and he hasn't been criminally charged, to be clear, nothing like that, but given his history, it really isn't a good look. I think the Dolphins are probably in need of a full-on rebuild, possibly GM and head coach all the way down to their quarterback and star receiver, but we'll see what actually happens here later on this season. The Giants regime of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll is also in question, but we already knew this was likely a make-or-break kind of year for them. I actually thought they might not make it through last season, but things didn't start out great for them this year either. They lost 21-6 to a divisional opponent in the Commanders. Russell Wilson did not have a great showing, completing just 17 of 37 passes for 168 yards as the offense failed to score a touchdown. Daboll told the media yesterday that they're sticking with Russ at QB1 for their upcoming game against the Cowboys, but the fact that this is already a conversation is pretty wild. It's well known how much Daboll loves the rookie Jackson Dart, so if they keep losing with Russ under center, you do have to wonder how soon before they make the change at quarterback. Probably not ideal to have your job resting in the hands of a rookie QB, but I don't know how much safer it is than Russell Wilson at this point either. But make sure to let me know your guys' level of concern for all these teams that I just mentioned. The 49ers, Dolphins, and Giants. Do you think the Niners are in danger of missing the playoffs yet again? And what do you think about these next handful of games for Miami? Will McDaniel be able to right the ship, or is he going to be the first head coach fired this season? Then, how long before we see the Giants pull the plug on Russ and hand the keys over to Jackson Dart? Let me know your thoughts either way on all this in the comments down below, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.